Hey guys, welcome back to Contest Prep University. Joe Klemczewski and Adam Atkinson talking about how you can maintain the most lean body mass in prep. Moving to episode 3, we're going to talk about cardio catabolism, and a little bit related to what we were just describing, Adam. I know what it's like to do 3 and 4 hours of cardio, just trying to plow forward. You've got that goal, you know you can do it, and you're willing to pay the price. But is it going to be to your advantage, or are you just going to look worse? And in every case, if you're doing too much cardio, yes, you're going to look worse. So where that line is the big debate. And I have my thoughts on how many times a day you should be physically active at certain levels: low intensity, moderate, high intensity weight training versus some form of cardio. I do think you need to factor in recovery days, pure rest days. Can you just throttle back? We have non-exercise activity to consider. The intensity in active exercise. I talked to a client recently that I said, man, you're deep into prep. You make sure you're moving with intention. I don't want you sitting down checking texts for 5 minutes between sets. Like, this is the time to make sure you're still getting the intensity that we talked about in episode 1. But with all of those things combined, all those variables, where do you kind of draw the line between this is maximum cardio that we can do and this is too much, we just cannot do that?
I think for me, it really comes down to, if we're doing a lot of cardio, can we sacrifice some other activities somewhere? So can we pull back training a couple more days a week if we're doing a lot of cardio? Just the overall nuance of even the time of being able to do all these things comes into play. But I do think that if you do enough cardio or you're doing so much, you're probably going to look like a runner versus a bodybuilder over time. There is a time and a place for it. And that's where that debate on too much is too much. I think it really does rely on the person. If you have someone with a really muscular body type, they might be able to get away with it and it not be that detrimental to their physique. But if you do that with an ectomorph, it's definitely going to show really, really heavily. So it really does depend on the person. I find with my endomorphs doing the higher amounts of cardio that we don't really see much tissue loss. And we always wonder, is it really tissue loss or just body fat woven between the tissues? Because we're still keeping that pace in place. So typically, as long as I'm not going over that, it's not too much. But you do get those check-ins on occasion where you're like, wait a minute, you're looking really stringy. We didn't lose that much. What's going on here? And that's where we really want to start hitting those rests and relaxation factors, maybe even give them a couple extra refeeds to restore some glycogen, and maybe even pull back that cardio, or just give an overall diet break for at least 3 days, if not a week or two.
I'll mention in passing because you brought it up. It's not the entire focus of this episode, but the fact that lean body mass is pretty hard to lose. 2/3 of all the gross volume of lean body mass you'll ever gain is within the first weeks of training. 90 to 95% of all of the volume you're going to gain is within the first year of training, unless you're hormonally enhanced. And so likewise, because you're still training, because you still have a nervous system that is recruiting motor units, you just don't lose it that rapidly. You get flatter, you lose, that glycogen volume. You will certainly strip away amino acids, off the myofilaments and so forth. But given enough time, and like you said, some refeeds, an appropriate tapering up at the end, no matter where your condition falls, just to make sure you at least have that level of fullness, like that can be very helpful. So I view cardio as intentional, aggressive cardio, and then the rest is just activity. If you're going to get on the treadmill and walk for 30 minutes, that's not cardio. That's walking. That's activity. It's barely a step above non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So I'm looking at cardio that's going to be disruptive to your recovery, that's going to maybe make your legs kind of sore, that's going to really deplete some glycogen. So moderate cardio to me is getting your heart rate above 140, 150 And high intensity is 180 plus. That's where you're doing some kind of intervals or some really aggressive sustained work. And I honestly think you can do 2 or 3 high intensity sessions a week, as long as they're not hour-long sessions of intervals, but 15, 20 minutes of very dedicated high intensity. And then you can do a lot of low intensity activity. But I still like to limit people in terms of sessions per day. So 2 times per day is what I want you physically active. Maybe one time is training, and then the other time is that 15 or 20 minutes of high intensity cardio or a 40, 45-minute walk. But if you're active more than that, like 3 times a day, 4 times a day, you're putting your shoes on, going to the gym, that's just too much. You're gonna end up really crushing your just ability to maintain any kind of anabolic environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you make some good points that you're going to be able to get away with a little more with enhancements in some way, shape, or form. But that's where we often see a lot of the worst protocols, because coaches have banked on that kind of error for a long time. And I'm really glad I experienced working with hundreds of natural competitors before I even started studying the enhanced realm. It's just, there's so much to learn on just the natural human physiology before you go into that.
Yep. All right, guys. So we're going to bounce back to the nutrition side in episode 4. We'll see you next time in Contest Prep University.